It's more than 3 hours' drive from the centre of Italy's coronavirus outbreak, but panic buying has set in.
Ma perché ci sono gli scaffali della pasta vuoti? Ma che cosa sta succedendo? Manco quando è scoppiata la seconda guerra mondiale c'era stato un panico così.
Perhaps this is human nature. When fear sets in, reach for comfort food. Italy now has the highest number of COVID-19 cases outside Asia. 219 people have tested positive and 6 people have died. It's currently centred around Lombardy and Veneto in northern Italy. Several towns have been placed in lockdown. Here they're stockpiling, unsure when they'll be allowed to leave. Yet do they really have more cases than the rest of Europe? We spoke to one of the doctors treating coronavirus patients.
The question is, did we find cases because we perform a lot of swabs and the other didn't perform the swabs because there was no reason according to international protocols? So in other words, there are other outbreaks in Europe that we don't know because authorities didn't look for it, or we are so unlucky to have the only outbreak in Italy.
Globally, 80% of people who contract the virus have mild or no symptoms. It can be hard to find. But there's another theory for Italy's outbreak.
Maybe in our country we have a collective social life that is very florid, very expressive. We have lots of contacts. We shake hands, we kiss each other, we hug each other.
The virus has now officially been detected in 28 countries and more than 2,000 deaths have been confirmed. But despite this spread, the World Health Organization has today said that this is not yet a pandemic.
For the moment, we are not witnessing the uncontained global spread of this virus, and we are not witnessing large-scale severe disease or deaths. Does this virus have pandemic potential? Absolutely, it has. Are we there yet? From our assessment, not yet.
The message, though, is be prepared. In South Korea's fourth largest city, Daegu, they've sent police officers out to track down members of a church identified as the source of hundreds of infections. While in Iran, officials said the number of deaths from COVID-19 were now 12, rejecting claims of a much higher death toll. Wuhan in Hubei province remains the worst affected region, and the WHO said today that it has the highest death rate in China for COVID-19, between 2 to 4% of cases. The number of new infections, though, is continuing to decline.
We cured 65 patients with 0 death rates, and none of our team was infected.
Across the rest of China, the death rate is now thought to be 0.7%, lower than first thought, though still 7 times higher than seasonal flu. Whether that's similar in other countries, they still don't yet know.
Well, fears over the coronavirus have sent financial markets tumbling around the world. Investors have become increasingly nervous that the virus could have a big impact, not just on the Chinese economy, but the worldwide one too. Our business and global trade correspondent Paul McNamara joins us now from the City of London. Paul, how bad have things been on the markets today?
Yeah, pretty bad. I mean, pick pretty much any stock market around the world, Kathy, and tonight I can show you a red line tumbling downwards. Let's start with Italy. Tonight their stock exchange down 5.4%. Not all that surprising given the lockdown you saw earlier on of Italian towns, but it's not isolated there though. In the US a short time ago, the Dow Jones down 3.3%, and that was echoed here in the UK. The FTSE tonight closed down 3.3%. Okay, so 3.3%, how bad is that? Pretty bad. 3.3% is the biggest single loss in a day in more than 4.5 years. 3.3% means that right now the 100 biggest companies in the UK are worth about £50 billion less than they were this morning. Now obviously some companies have fared worse than others. The big losers today, travel companies. So EasyJet down a huge 17%. IAG, the owners of British Airways, down 9%, and TUI, the world's largest tour operator, down 10%. And all of these losses come back to coronavirus.
Lots of eye-watering numbers. So just take us through why investors are so worried.
Well, one economist was saying to us today, it's not so much the virus they're worried about, it's the response to the virus. And as you saw in that report earlier on, the response has been lockdown. And so you can see why travel operators and travel companies are being clobbered. But why is everyone else being hit? Well, it's not just tourism which is seizing up, it's real life. In quarantine zones, no one's going to work. In China, manufacturing has been hit, slowing down massively, which means components aren't being shipped to factories across the world, which means goods aren't being made, which means they will not be sold. And just to give you an indicator of how important China is now to the world economy, back in 2003 when SARS struck, China accounted for about 4% of global output. In 2020, it's expected to be about 17%. It's quadrupled. So the question now is, what do central banks do to boost the economies? Well, the speculation at the moment is that the US Federal Reserve might be getting ready to slash interest rates, and if they do, pressure then mounts on the Bank of England to do exactly the same.
Paul, thanks very much. Jackie.